Hey sports fans, and welcome to the Business Fixer podcast, where we believe that clarity is king and simplicity is queen. I am your host, Haroon Rashid. Today, episode 6, the business turnaround plan, 3 simple steps of how to create a business turnaround plan. I'm really excited because this is the culmination of over 10 years experience that I have when I've gone into businesses and turned them around, and it's just the key lessons that I've learned that have worked every single time. The Business Fixer podcast is sponsored by Dad Mode. Dad Mode is hilarious dad gifts, dad jokes, t-shirts, and dad mugs. Some really good stuff on there. You can go and visit them on dadmode.co.uk, where there are special offers on. Even though we've gone past Father's Day, there's still some great offers on there where you can still buy some gifts for him. So that's dadmode.co.uk. So one of the key things that I get asked as a business turnaround expert is, how do I create a business turnaround plan? And in all my years of working with businesses, I've come up with a 3-step process that works every single time. And don't get me wrong, although it's only 3 steps, there's a hell of a lot of work behind each step. And but what I want to make sure is that if you are in a business turnaround situation and you're listening to this podcast, then you will at least be able to go away and you'll have some actionable stuff that you can do straight away to help turn things around. And don't forget to go on to businessfixer.co.uk, where we will put all the links to this good stuff in the show notes. So make sure you go and check out the website, look at the show notes, look at the links and all the good resources that we have there, which will support today's episode. So, business turnaround plan step number 1 is all around the numbers. So understanding the financial numbers, this has to be the starting point for any business in a turnaround situation. If you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. This is crucial to turning things around. You'd be surprised how many times I've been in a business and asked them basic questions about the numbers and they don't know. Well, how can you fix something if you don't know where the issues are? So when I say you need to understand the numbers, as always, if you read the blog, I'm always banging on about knowing the 3 financial statements, and that's the profit and loss statement, or the P&L, the cash flow statement, and the balance sheet. Again, if you go on the show notes, I will put links to all of these 101 guides that I've done for each of the financial statements, so you will know what you're looking for and how to improve them. So, but if you aren't financially astute, then don't worry about it. I mean, look, profit and loss, look, that is simple. How profitable are you? Or how profitable aren't you? I guess is the thing. Cash flow statement, of course, is just telling you how well are you moving cash through the business, how well are you collecting money, and how are you paying money out, what's in the bank balance at the end of the day. The balance sheet tells you your net worth as a company. It's saying how many assets have you got, how many liabilities have you got, and then you take those away from each other and you're left with a net position. That's very, very oversimplified way of looking at it. But go and check out the show notes. So once you understand the numbers, i.e. what profit do we have or not have, what's our gross profit, what's the tax, what's the profit before tax and after tax, things like that, or the cash flow position, or your shareholder value on the balance sheet. Once you know that, that's your starting point. You know where you are. We're in the beginning now. The next thing we need to do is to paint the new financial picture. So it doesn't matter what it looks like right now on the numbers. It doesn't matter. All you're going to do is say, what does the great picture look like? What does the dream position look like? And for each financial statement, you're going to create a dream position. So on the P&L, you're going to say, what profit do we want to be looking at? What gross profit do we want to be looking at? What does our net profit need to look like? On the cash flow statement, you'll be saying, well, what surplus do we want to see? You might say even, how quickly are we collecting money? So we might be collecting money from people on average within 60 days. Maybe you want to reduce that to 45 days or 30 days. On the balance sheet, you might want to reduce your liability somehow. Now, all of this is just your dream position. This is what you're working towards. It's the goal. And, the next thing we need to do then, of course, is to make that dream a reality. And how do you do that? You set goals. So the next section would be to set financial goals. Now, you've dared to dream. It's time to start making the dreams become a reality. But remember, a dream without goals are just dreams. They don't just magically happen. You have to make them happen. So I always advocate using a goal-setting formula that comes from a book called The 4 Disciplines of Execution by the Franklin Covey Institute. And it's a fantastic book. Again, it'll be in the show notes. Go and get a copy of that book. But in there, they give you a fantastic goal-setting formula which goes like this. Move X to Y by when. So we've done another episode on this where we've covered this in a lot more detail. But again, you can get the book or go look at the blog. But let's say our gross profit was currently at 20%. Now, what the goal would look like would be we're going to increase gross profit from 20% to 35% by December 2021. Do you see how that works? We're moving something to Y by when. That's why you need to know the starting point. That's what the X is in the formula. So you need to set goals with that formula for each of the financial statements. Now we're on to the step number 2, which is defining the few most valuable goals. Now, the biggest temptation in a business turnaround situation is to try and do everything at once. You can't do that. And it sounds very counterintuitive, but the biggest thing that I ask people to do straight away is stop. Just stop everything. Stop everything we're doing. Let's just think. And again, it's counterintuitive because there's fires that need putting out. Things are going wrong left, right, and center. There's urgent things all the time that are cropping up. But unless you stop and just think about what are the few highest value things I can tackle right now, you're not going to get any further forward. Trust me, I've been there. Now, I always talk about something called the business triangle, which again will be in the show notes, but every business can be boiled down into 3 areas. That's finance, operations, sales, and marketing. Every single business can be boiled down to those 3 things, those core elements. As long as you get those 3 things right, you will be fine. Everything else just kind of seems to fall into place. And in a business turnaround situation, 1, 2, or all 3 of those things are going to have issues. I can guarantee you that. So what I would do is I would use something called the Big 3, which comes from a great book called Free to Focus by Michael Hyatt. And in that, it's a way to prioritize your tasks. It's basically saying you could do 100 things, but what are the 3 most valuable things you could do right now that's going to have the biggest impact? We're not ignoring everything else. All we're saying is, let's just prioritize these things. If we could just get these 3 things right, what would they be and what impact would they have? So, as I said, there's 3 core components: the finance, operations, sales, and marketing. We need to identify the big 3 in each of those areas. So finance, we've already talked about in step number 1. You're going to have some goals for each of the financial statements. Operations, what are the 3 things that you need to do to get that thing in shape? What about sales and marketing? What are the few high value things you can do to increase sales or better your marketing? And, it doesn't have to be 3. The point is that you're chunking things down. It could be 5 things. It could be 4. It could be 1. It doesn't matter. As long as you find the high value thing that's going to turn things around and get it done. So I would definitely use the Big 3. So now we move on to step number 3 in the business turnaround plan. Execution. We've got to get it done. So we just go back a second. So number 1 was that we were going to look at the finances, understand the finances, and set financial goals. Secondly, we're going to do the Big 3 structure around finance, operations, sales, and marketing. And now we're going to execute the goals that we've set. So one of the best books, again, that I have already referenced is The 4 Disciplines of Execution. Get a hold of that book. It is absolutely fantastic, and it shows you how to execute. Interestingly, in that book, they talk about how everybody's been on a business course or a business degree or whatever. We get taught how to do business planning or business strategy, but we don't get taught how to execute those plans and strategies. People don't have a business planning problem. They have a business execution problem. The value's not in the plan. The value's in the execution. So, execution is paramount. One of the other things that I'll recommend for you is another book called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. Very interesting names. But those guys have written that book, and it's about leadership lessons that they learned as ex-Marines in Afghanistan and Iraq. And they definitely talk about how to get buy-in for your plan and how to execute excellently. So that is it for the podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this quick overview of the business turnaround plan. If you do want to go and check out the show notes, remember it's businessfixer.co.uk. Remember to check out the show notes. I'll make sure everything's in there. And until next time, take care, sports fans.